Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation here on Big Country Politics. I'm Manny Diaz. This week, our special guest is Railroad Commissioner of Texas, Ms. Christi Craddick. She is running for Comptroller of Texas. Commissioner Craddick, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. There are three candidates in this particular race. You've been on the Railroad Commission since roughly about 2012. Tell me, as we kind of move into the primary here that's coming up in March of 2026, how will that agency-specific experience with the Railroad Commission prepare you for the broad financial oversight responsibilities of the Comptroller's office?
Well, thanks for the question, and it's nice to be back in Abilene. As some of you may know, I grew up in Midland, and my mother grew up in Sweetwater, so it feels like coming home when I get out to West Texas. And we obviously have, as the Railroad Commission, have a field office out in Abilene. So a shout out to the folks who work for me out there. They do a great job for us. Look, the Railroad Commission has been a great agency and will continue to be, and I'm excited of how far we've come. When I got there, I'm going to give you three things that when I got there, we had some challenges. And first and foremost, as an agency, we were on a mainframe Fortran in our IT. Nobody knows what that is because that's how old it is. And we have in the process and are almost finished upgrading that, and we've gone to cloud. And what that's done for us as an agency, we were at 90 days to get a drilling permit out. Today we're at 48 hours, a lot more efficient, a lot more transparent. We also went in and audited an agency. We made sure we had the right people, and we're doing great training, and we're doing inspections. We're on track to make sure we are doing what we're supposed to do at the Railroad Commission. And you've seen an industry continue to grow in the state. Last year, 27 billion with a B dollars that came into this state. That's really important to the state's economy. It's also important to make sure that people know what the rules are and know that we have fair, consistent regulations. So translate that over to the Comptroller's office. Look, I'm already regulating a third of the state's economy, so that makes sense that I know the oil and gas piece, and we're learning more and more about the rest of the state, and that's been an exciting piece for me. One of the things I started talking about that I think is really important, we all know we pay taxes to the state, like sales taxes, but we also pay taxes locally. And for the last 20 years, we haven't done what I'm getting ready to tell you. I think we should do it again, which is go in, if you're getting ready to have a school board bond election, for instance, and audit your school district fiscally, financially, and say, these are where your dollars are going. This is how the dollars are being spent. That's a lot of money you're asking us for a bond election, for instance, to spend. We want to make sure that the local voters have transparency, know where the dollars are being spent, and then they get to make the decision whether they vote for that bond or not. But I think people want to know where their dollars are going.
You know, with major infrastructure and data center developments happening in West Texas, i.e. the massive data center just north of Abilene and in Haskell County and throughout pretty much our region, the campuses that are powered by natural gas centers, how will you as comptroller weigh the fiscal risk and rewards of large-scale investment and incentive packages?
So I think that's one of the things. We also do it through economic groups that are local as well. So I think, again, it's finding and making sure that there are good numbers and available from the comptroller's office. And if local communities want to give those tax incentives, that we help them understand how that'll affect their communities, give them good information, and if we need to, walk those communities through the process. Look, one of the things the comptroller does that people forget, we train at that agency the appraisers in this state. So we all get frustrated when your taxes come out, the appraisals come out, but sometimes those appraisers need better training as well. But making sure that there are good numbers available, to all entities so they know how your taxes are going to be affected and what it does to you locally, I think is very, very important. You're right, we've got those coming up all over, particularly West Texas, and we're glad to sell all this associated natural gas to companies and let them put some power plants behind the meter, so to speak. And I think we might get nuclear done. We're sitting in Abilene right now as well, and real opportunity for those micro nuclear plants coming up in the next few years too. Texas needs to continue to grow, and we want to make sure we are continue to be strong as a state, and energy is a big piece of that, but it's not the only part. We need to make sure our electricity grids still online and that we're continuing not just to bring businesses in, but to make sure that once they get here, they want to stay here too.
Coming up after the break, more with Christi Craddick, Railroad Commissioner of Texas, currently running for Texas Comptroller. We're talking about her first 90 days in office if elected, plus how she would deal with a big budget program falling short, yet politically protected. That and more after the break.
Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Ms. Craddick, you've pledged to audit everything in the Comptroller's office. What would be your first 90 days roadmap for launching such an audit across state spending?
So first and foremost, I'll get there on January 1st of 2027, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
So the first thing you have to do when you walk in the door is make sure you've got good people. But even before that, the legislature goes in that about a week later, good or bad, they're coming back. And so the first job that the comptroller does right before the day, basically the day or the day before they come into session, is give a budget estimate of what the legislature has to spend. So that'll be the first priority because that's within about a week of me getting sworn in there. And so that'll be important. That way they can start the have a budget process. But really even before that, we need to make sure that we're getting good budget estimates to the legislature. So that'll be part of the conversation for whoever is still sitting there that I'll be having. Look, we've got an oil and gas dip right now. We're all watching it. There are other things going on in the state. So you want to make sure that there are no surprises and they come in and they know how much money that they have to spend because it's yours and my tax dollars, by the way. Simultaneously, I think you walk in the door and go, okay, who's still here? What are we doing as an agency? Let's go in and look at every single division and identify the ones, because we'll have had a lot of listening by the time we get there. Identify the ones we know we've already heard some places we can fix immediately. I mentioned earlier that our audit division probably needs some streamlining, some training, and so that'd be a division I'd focus on. And so look at every single piece of the agency first, because I think it's hard to go audit anybody else until you've audited yourself. But audit the agency, see who we've got. Do we have people that we need to promote? Do we have some people that we're still looking for? Where are dollars being spent? So that's the first 90 days, and you do that really, I think, very proactively, and they'll be in a legislative session. So you get asked a lot of questions when they're in a session. Again, so you'll be reacting and giving good information in the legislature. And then my envision of local auditing, by the way, is going and having local people ask us to come in. So I don't think I think local entities have the right to be in charge of themselves. I think the closer we have to local government, that's great. But state agencies help you, and that's our goal, is to help.
You touched on this in the first segment. You proposed a local government efficiency task force to review city, school district, and special purpose entity budgets. What legal authority would the task force have, and how will you protect local control while promoting financial accountability?
And so actually the comptroller has the authority already to go audit local groups, local entities, as well as state agencies. We used to do this 20 years ago. We just haven't done it in a while. And I think it's a good thing as another layer to figure out where your tax dollars are going. And like I said, I don't think that we should, as an agent, as a statewide agency, come in and tell you what to do. I think we ought to make recommendations, if there are recommendations as we do an audit of where your dollars are being spent, how you can be more efficient. Are you buying 20 trucks when you really only need 10? Are you spending your dollars in the classroom, or are you spending it on administration? You, the local taxpayer, ought to know where your dollars are going. And once you understand, we then post that. It's about transparency.
Well, if you become comptroller and identify a major program that is underperforming and consuming large funds, yet is politically protected, how will you proceed? Will you disclose publicly, recommend change, push legislative action?
Absolutely, you disclose everything, right? That's part of the reality as you look at where your dollars are going. It's a policy issue for the legislature. Then at that point, once they see that program and see those dollars, if they want to continue it or not, they've made that decision as a quote regulator, comptroller. Your job is to implement their policies. A lot of times once they see those policies, if they aren't working how they intended, maybe you've got to go back and reassess how that program's been implemented, or they go assess as a policymaker if they want that program to continue. And if it does, do we need to fix how we're implementing it? And so the advocacy piece from any kind of agency is, look, this is where we are. This is how your policies that you voted on are being implemented. This is what we are doing. Are we doing what you intended, first and foremost? And B, if we aren't, we need help here. And so a good example for us at the Railroad Commission, well plugging, everybody hears about it. We have orphaned abandoned wells. Last session, we went into the legislature and said, look, we as an agency, Railroad Commission, had at that point about 8,000 orphaned abandoned wells. You're handing out money. A lot of it's oil and gas money. We need $100 million because we need to be able to plug not just orphaned abandoned wells, but we have emergency wells that we're having challenges with across the state. We went in and talked to them and explained what the issues are. We need $100 million was our number. And that's what we ended up getting, which we appreciate. We're implementing those dollars as an agency. In fact, this past week we had a public meeting. We just put quite a few more contracts out to continue plugging wells. That was a priority for this agency. So I think you go in as any agency head and tell them your priorities, and then explain why they're your priorities, and hopefully they'll understand and help you with your priorities.
Commissioner Craddick, you've run statewide elections before, but this is a different role with different responsibilities. What is your single biggest learning from your time at the Railroad Commission that you plan to carry into the Comptroller's office?
It's an interesting question. So I don't know if I have a single. I'm going to say a couple of things. First and foremost, I'd say you've got to have good people. You've got to train good people and have good people, because you're only as good as the people around you, I think, first and foremost. And two, really being more transparent. We have upgraded an IT program at the Railroad Commission very deliberately, so everybody now can tell where the wells are that were out by them, or the pipelines. So being more transparent with the tax dollars you've been given to spend is, I think, is the other priority as we move to the Comptroller's office.
Yeah. Well, Commissioner Craddick, appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks. And look us up, Christi Craddick for Comptroller.com. We appreciate the time, and thanks for having us.
All righty. For Commissioner Christi Craddick, running for Comptroller of Texas, I am Manny Diaz. This has been another Sunday Conversation right here on Big Country Politics. We'll see you next time. God bless.